we're talking about new thinking and shifts, some of our speakers today. I want you to get ready for new shift and new thinking. I'm going to move on then to somebody who mentioned, one of our speakers, new images of our connectedness. I'm preparing you for the next bit. I now want to call on Charles Correa's red dots. There are 5 red dots who've spoken today. Charles Correa from India, Billy Miller from Barbados, the mayor of Accra from Ghana, a Canadian speaker that I haven't quite identified for my program. Then there's Wally N'Dow from Gambia, and there is the 6th speaker was Peter Oberlander from Canada. And if I may make myself another red dot, I come from New Zealand. Now, a quarter of the people in this room are also red dots. And as a result of it, I think there's a slight shade of purple coming around because of these dots. Not today, because of what did you say, 76 years, Billy? 376 years of Commonwealth history. That is how old the Commonwealth system of 53 countries is. But talk about a wasted resource. The great thing is that the Commonwealth today has a most magnificent and powerful political agenda. But it is a narrow political agenda. It keeps the Commonwealth before the public and the world gaze. It's learnt the word global from the Commonwealth Human Ecology Council, I think, that we've been pounding for 40 years. We're called Czech. Now, this Commonwealth has got a new shift in thinking required. You made some points, Charles Correa, too, about the rural aspects of the thing. I think you may know figures better than I, but it must be 70% of the world's people are still in rural areas. So we've got some thinking to do when we concentrate on cities. But this Commonwealth, with its 300 years of history, one of the ambassadors, I think, was in New York, put this onto the front of our journal. The Commonwealth, this unique network, 24-5 words, this unique network of nations bound by kinship and familiarity into a human relationship reflecting different geographical, biological, economic, cultural, and religious characteristics, provides the canvas for human ecology. If I may take just 1 minute to speak of human ecology, because we're not going to bring the Commonwealth alive and out of its narrow political agenda unless we use a tool such as human ecology. And I think everybody speaking here today could have put under that term, it's human ecology. Human ecology is the synthesis, the entire concept as we see it, of mankind and the future. So that's, I feel this, and finally I think that the Commonwealth heads of government, this is the solution as we're seeing it now, the Commonwealth heads of government meet every 2 years, and a powerful bunch they are. Billy Miller was there and spoke for Czech in the last five months where we were in New Zealand. I put my money on her. She's capable of being a non-government and a government, which is absolutely essential. These people play around at the political level and never bow to the other side. She doesn't care whether she's in power or not politically. She knows how to behave when she's not in power. The last thing I think here...
I wonder if we could,
right.
Give some time to some other speakers,
right,
perhaps?
The solution being, I think, that the Centre for Human Settlements has a role to play with the Commonwealth in the very near future. And in the Journal on Monday, you will see a date for Commonwealth people to come and put this into operation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have also to call in Serine Mustafa Makbey of Tuba. Monsieur Makbey. Mbake, I'm sorry, Mr. Mbake of Senegal.
إن مدينة طوبى التي أسسها الشيخ أحمد بن عام 1887 للعبادة والتقرب إلى الله قد تم نموها بهذه الكيفية. تهيئة برامج لتطوير تكوين أسس القيادة، إيجاد مصادر للتمويل. وقد نجحت في جعل هذه المدينة مدينة استكملت كثيرا من متطلباتها: إنشاء سكة حديدية وطرق معبدة تربطها بالمدن الأخرى، بناء جامع كبير، توسيع الأحياء السكنية وتنظيمها باستمرار، بناء مراكز ثقافية، الإصلاحات الروحية المستمرة، شبكات النظافة، تزويد الشوارع بالنور، إيجاد أكبر مشروع زراعي في السنغال للتمويل وللتشغيل، شبكات لمياه الشرب، جامعة، مدارس، حماية البيئة، التضامن، إنشاء المرافق البشرية بمختلف أنواعها، سهولة التنقل، الأمن التام. وقد قام هؤلاء الزعماء مع أتباعهم وبمحض ثرواتهم بهذه الإنجازات الهامة التي فصلناها في دفترة طوبى المرئية والمكتوبة الموجودة لدى الأمانة العامة لهذا المؤتمر. وهكذا أصبحت مدينة طوبى بفضل أوامر مؤسسها وبامتثال الأتباع ووفاء الخلفاء لهذه الأوامر في المرتبة الثانية بعد العاصمة داكار بعدد سكانها وبمستوى نموها البالغ 12% سنويا. وفي المرتبة الأولى والفريدة، حيث أن التخطيط يسبق الإسكان، لا مساكن فوضوية أو عشوائية ولا مشردين ولا ارتكابات ولا مخالفات، كما أن الصحة والتعليم والماء والعقارات السكنية كلها بدون مقابل، كما أن هذه المدينة تستضيف 2 مليون من الأتباع في احتفال سنوي يقام، وأن إقامة هؤلاء جميعا على نفقة هذه المدينة، أي التضامن بمعناه الكامل. أيها السادة، إننا نودع هذا القرن ولنا منه ما لنا، ونحن وإن لم نبلغ الأهداف المنشودة للبشرية في طيات هذا القرن من سلام وتقدم، إلا أننا على الأقل أردنا ذلك أم لا تعلمنا منه الكثير والكثير جدا. تعلمنا منه الحرب وذقنا منها المرارتين، مرارة الهزيمة ومرارة الانتصار. نعم، الهزيمة بما تنطوي من ظلم وعار وندم وخسارة، والانتصار المبني على جثث الأبرياء والمبلط من دمائهم وعلى حساب الأطفال والأمهات والآباء. تعلمنا منه النجاح والفشل. نعم، النجاح، ولكن فقط في خلق نظريات ملائمة لحل مشاكلنا وكسب مصالحنا، ولكننا فشلنا وفشلنا وفشلنا في تطبيق هذه النظريات وفقا لمبدأ تحقيق المصالح والمكاسب المشتركة، وأصبحنا الآن على شفا قرن مدبر وآخر مقبل، وأمامنا الآن خياران: الخيار السلبي، وهو أن نحاول مع طلائع القرن الآتي المحافظة على أنقاض القرن المتناهي مع تعديلات في وضع الأثاث والتحف لبعض الغرف والصالات، أي أن نبقى في الاتجاه الجانبي بدلاً من الاتجاه الشامل، فتجنح السفينة التي تحمل الموكب البشري ذات اليمين وذات الشمال، أي بدون توازن. والخيار الثاني، وهو ما يدعونا إليه الحاجة والضرورة والحال، أن نبني من جديد، ونتفادى في هذه المرة كل ما من شأنه أن يحيط هذا البناء البشري بمخاطر وآفات، مع مراعاة كل ما يؤدي إلى الراحة والطمأنينة والأمن، وهو هنا أن نجتمع على بحث حل ثابت وشامل ومتكامل لمشاكل البشرية ومستوطناتها فيما تبقى لنا من هذا القرن، وعلى استراتيجية منسقة في الإسكان نهاجم وفق مخططاتها في القرن المقبل على كل خلايا سرطان التعمير والإسكان وبجبهات على حسب تعداد سكان كوكبنا وتعددهم، حيث يقوم كل فرد وبكل ما يملك من الطاقة والكفاءة وما أدرك ما هي، لا لحل مشاكله وحدها ولكن لحل مشاكل المجتمع البشري كله، ولا باستعمال الأساليب المتطورة وحدها في الإسكان أو بالقوالب والأسمنت، ولكن مع تصميم روحي وخلقي يجسد في تشكيل معنوي موحد وهو حسن النية. ويومئذ يحل إلى الأبد قضية السكنى والمساكن والإسكان والسكان، وتعيش المستوطنات البشرية ومستوطنيها في جو يسوده التضامن والثقة والوئام، ونكون بذلك قد أجبنا على كل الأسئلة المطروحة لدينا في هذا الملتقى. وفي الختام أجدد اقتراحي في اتخاذ عبارة حسن النية من كل فرد شعاراً للمستوطنات البشرية ابتداءً من الآن، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now let's take some other questions. I noticed this young lady first in the second row.
I'd just like to make a few comments on the presentations that were made today.
Perhaps, excuse me, perhaps it would help if each of the speakers said where he or she came
sure,
from. When,
sure. My name is Narmeen Sheikh, and I work at the Sustainable Development Policy Institute in Pakistan, Islamabad, Pakistan. I will limit my comments to 3 points. The first is that although I realize that the focus of the summit is the city, I don't think that it's useful to dismiss altogether rural areas, because I think that we all realize that no matter how much we try to keep pace with urbanization, it is impossible for us to accommodate our entire population in urban areas. It is just not feasible. The second point is the usage of the term developing. I would like to thank the German minister who actually qualified this usage with the phrase so-called. The term developing implies that countries in the north have actually reached some kind of a zenith. They are at a pinnacle to which every other country in the world that does not fall into the north must aspire. Now, aside from the ideological problems with that, this is also not possible, both environmentally, economically, and so on. So for countries in the south to be under the false illusion that we can one day be where the United States or Canada or Sweden is today is, I think, false and misleading. The third point is revolves around the entire question of modernization and of development. Our countries in the south are and I cannot speak only for Pakistan, and moreover not just for Pakistan but for myself, that our reliance and our dependence on multilateral lending institutions like the World Bank and like the IMF necessitate that we, through a market economy and liberalization, that we adopt what, to my mind, are the most pernicious aspects of Western culture. And as you can probably tell from my accent, I have lived a great deal of my life in the West. But the aspects of the West that I would like to adopt are not those that my country is choosing to adopt now. Because all of these necessarily lead to everything that people have been criticizing today. For example, rampant individualism, consumerism, and intense individualism, and development at the cost of all else. All of these factors, I think we recognize, are divisive, inequitable, and dehumanizing by definition. And they are not at all conducive to community and much less to human solidarity. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wonder if anyone on the panel wants to, Mr. Correa, do you want to just comment briefly on the, you also come from the subcontinent, do you want to comment on the observation that the northern developed cities are not possibly the model for developing cities?
Yes, of course, they're not at all the model. And I think they're part of the mythic imagery which destroys the economy of the poorer cities, trying to imitate them. But I just like to correct one thing. I don't think anyone's trying to put everyone into cities. It's exactly the opposite, for God's sake. The people are pouring into the cities out of desperation. All I was trying to say is that the way Europeans could redistribute themselves around the world, which then led to prosperity for them, which then led to smaller families for them, which then led to the virtue of zero population growth, was a series of accidents that has nothing to do with morality. Now, until Australia is open to Indians and to Pakistanis, if I may suggest, we have to move to Karachi and Bombay and Calcutta. It's a wonderful thing if we could only adjust these cities and little market towns to absorb these people. This is a heroic move, and thank God they've got the guts and the energy to move to these cities. Thank God for the Europeans that they had the intelligence and the cunning to try and colonize the world. Otherwise, they all would have died in ghettos and in the cold climate of Europe. So this is a very positive thing, and I wish our governments understood what a wonderful, organic, healthy movement this is. If everyone lay down and died in the villages of India, I would really despair. The fact that they can climb on their hind legs and come all the way to our cities is wonderful, but no one's saying that we put everyone into cities. We're just trying to say these are things going to happen anyway, and let's make the best of it.
Now, I'd like to recognize a gentleman at the back there. Yes, you, sir. While you're getting a microphone, may I say, it would help utilize the wonderful resources of our panel if some of your observations could be framed as questions to them.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Moderator, Mr. McNeil. I would like just first to congratulate for the organization of this forum and to the panelists and you for the way you have conducted the work. I'm going to make two observations, and I would like Mr. Çiragan to comment upon. I am Paulo França from Brazil. I'm sorry I didn't introduce myself at the beginning. The two aspects are the following. The first one is that I think we cannot establish a dichotomy between market economy and state-oriented economy and say that on one side, on the first side, we have all the positive aspects, and on the other side, we have all the negative ones. The point is that the ideology or the thesis of deregulation and free market economy that spread out in the last years in policy, in politics, and economy has created a sort of confusion and no positive and no good answers as to what is going to be the role of the state. I think that we have to create the new state that is engaged in responding to the needs of society and engaged in stimulating solidarity. The second aspect that I wanted to mention is that we are not going to create better cities if we do not understand the relationships, the interactions between local, national, and global levels. For instance, I'm going to give you an example. In my country, in the south of Brazil, the policy, the agricultural policy in the late 60s, in the beginning of the 70s, was to produce primary goods such as soybeans for export. And for that policy, it was stimulated the financing of big enterprises. This has created a negative impact in the land tenure, and it has created a very important impact in the thousands of people that poured into the cities of my state because of that negative impact. The second aspect, for instance, is the question of subsidies in developed countries as to agricultural products. This was not entirely solved in the OMC agreements. This has, of course, a negative impact in all the countries of developing countries, the so-called third world countries, that depend upon primary products for their revenues.
What was the specific point you wanted to put to Dr. Çiragan?
No, I wanted just to make these two observations and then for him to comment. And the third aspect that I wanted to mention as an example of the impacts of the local, national, and global aspects is the question of the debt of the third world countries. This is something that the media that you mentioned is not talking about anymore, but it's still a problem. Many developing countries put a lot send back to for paying interest a lot of their internal savings. So in my perspective, I think that what we need is not assistance. I think that what we need is cooperation. You were talking about the concepts, the code of conduct. The code of conduct has to do with, I think, tolerance, education, engagement, respect for difference, and very important, partnership. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Zargadin.
Mr. Moderator, can I suggest something to you before we ask Mr. Saragildin to answer this? You know, we have spent a better part of the day focusing on issues of human solidarity in urban settlements. And I would encourage members of the audience to focus their observations on that so that I can learn from them also on the same theme which we were discussing.
You anticipate a point I was going to make. Thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just be very brief to our colleague here. Maybe I did not express myself well because I certainly, that was not what I said. What you were quoting was not what I said. I did say that we needed a public-private partnership. It was not an either-or proposition. I did recognize the multiplicity of levels. I would like to address 2 points, though, that were coming from the earlier observation, and more generally it has come several times, which is the question of what happens in the rural world. I think it's very important to know, and I can speak with great expertise because I'm also the chairman of international agricultural research in the world, and there's a separate summit that's going to address that. But in fact, the biggest interface between humans and the environment is in agriculture. 70% of the land colonized by human beings is in agriculture. In the developing countries, 80% of the water is misused in irrigation. And therefore, the transformation of dealing with the rural world, which is an important topic, separate from the one we're discussing in Istanbul, is absolutely an essential part of the overall solution. Not only will it deal with the problems of rural poverty in terms of increasing incomes there, it will increase food security, and it will also reduce the pressure to expand agricultural land, which would therefore chop the forests, colonize the hillsides, and bring about erosion. But it will also make a very major contribution to dealing with the urban poor, because the single best urban poverty program that you can have is cheap food, because that doesn't pass through any bureaucracy, it doesn't pass through any administration, it goes directly into the pocket of the poor, for whom in the urban centers they're buying their food, and therefore local cheap food becomes very, very important. So there is certainly no intention, I think, on any of us to sort of be having blinders. We don't have blinders, but as my colleague said, that we're focusing on a specific theme and a specific location, not ignoring the total picture.
Thank you. I recognize the lady in the front row here. Yes.
My name is Adeshida Peterson, the African. Is it talking?
Yes, on now. Yes.
My name is Adeshida Peterson from the African Center for Magazine Publishing in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. My question is for Dr. Phyllis Lambert. In 1989, the UNESCO Courier issued a special edition under the headline 1789, The Idea That Changed the World. In that edition, we were reminded about Thomas Paine, who was a laborer for 38 years before he became a philosopher, and eventually presented us with the rights of man. And that went on to change the world. Now it seems that a new phenomenon is evolving here. And I'm not quite sure if the Vancouver conference of 20 years ago was as aggressive as this one. But it looks like the entire world is now focusing on human settlements. And Dr. Lambert has suggested that the establishment of a center similar to the Amnesty International that will monitor habitat activities in the future. Does she mean that this center should be established by the United Nations or as an independent organization? Because if it's established by the United Nations, it may not be able to behave like the Amnesty International. Thank you very much.
My point was that it should be, of course, done by private organization, as the Amnesty International is, and not a governmental or quasi, not a United Nations organization.
Yes, thank you. The lady in the second row here, you see right here? Can you give her a microphone? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McNeil. I've always enjoyed your programs, by the way. I'm Laila Takla from Cairo, Egypt. No, I can't. I think when we speak about human solidarity, to know is a key word. We don't know enough about each other. And this is why yesterday or the day before, the headline in one of the newspapers was a certain Senator, Helm, saying, why habitat? He doesn't think that there is any reason why this conference should be held. Now, I don't think Senator Helm ever lived in Islam. I don't think he was ever a woman. I don't think he ever had to take care of 5 children and his sick mother. And I don't think he had difficulty getting credit facilities or legal aid. He doesn't know. That is the problem. Or at least I hope he doesn't know, because if he knows and he says that, then there is something wrong there. Now, we really don't know about each other. I think Muslims think that Christians worship 3 gods, not one, which is not true. And Christians think that Islam is a ferocious, cruel religion, which is not true. And both of us, Christians and Muslims, we think that Hindus and Confucianism and Taoism are atheists, which is also not true. We do not know about each other. And without knowledge, we cannot have solidarity. Now, there is a great deal of solidarity, but between the groups themselves. The rich have solidarity between them. You know, the mafia have great solidarity between them. People do have solidarity, it exists, but there is no solidarity between the groups. And this, I think, is the problem. This is what I hope, that this very impressive audience might have a follow-up meeting and find out what are the techniques by which we can establish solidarity between the different groups and at the same time not crush their cultural differences. And here I would like to draw your attention to the very interesting report which we made. I'm a member of the World Commission in Culture and Development, and Perez de Cuellar presides that, and there is a report called Our Creative Diversity. It's been out for a month, and it answers a lot of the questions that have been raised here. Now, my last comment really would be, no, the one before last, would be that solidarity exists, Mr. Chairman. It does exist. And maybe one of the approaches of reconciling development and solidarity would be not to crush the existing solidarity. Because as Dr. Hassan said, we have it in the villages, we have it in extended families, so let us not try to imitate other cultures and crush solidarity. And let those other cultures stop their cultural invasion so this solidarity that exists is not there. My last comment is about the fact that they say that cultures encourage mutilation of female. There is no culture that encourages mistreating women. These are only bad habits created by men. Thank you.
Gentlemen. It's the, would you give the microphone to the gentleman with the gray beard in the, no, excuse me, I beg your pardon, sir. I recognize the gentleman behind you. Thank you. Thank you.
Teşekkür ederim. Ben Türkçe konuşmak istiyorum. Lütfen. Benim adım Sıtkı Koca, mimar. Almanya'nın Münih kentinde 25 senedir pratik çalışmalarımı yürütüyorum. Şu anda Augsburg Üniversitesi'nde bilimsel bir çalışma yazıyorum. Dinlediğim kadarıyla soru ve cevap olarak 12 madde altında kısaca şöylece toparladım ve bu aynı zamanda benim çalışmamın sonucu olabilecek bir cevap anlamında. 1. Kültürlerin parçalanması ve onun bir parçası olan kentsel yerleşimlerin çöp yuvalarına dönüşmeleri endüstrileşmenin sonucudur ve çözümü vardır. 2. Takvimlerimizi endüstrileşmenin başlangıcı öncesi ve endüstrileşme başlangıcı sonrası olarak yeniden düzenlemek gerekir. Bu çok önemlidir. 3. Biz uzay çağına girmiş isek, uzay çağına uygun çözümler getirmek zorundayız. 4. Geçmişte ve günümüzde tümüyle kentsel dokular yerleşim olarak ve idari olarak merkezidir ve statiktir. Altyapı sorunları çözülemez ya da finanse edilemez boyutlara ulaşmıştır. 5. Toplumsal yaşam sistemi insanların ortak disiplinidir. Bu disiplin ekonomik baza dayalı profite yönelik kapitalist sistemin ötesinde kültür ve insan yerleşimleri bazında yeni bir felsefe ile değerlendirmeli. Serbest pazar ekonomisi hiçbir zaman kalıcı çözüm olamaz. Sermaye yere inemez. 6. Kentler kentsel dokular üst yapıları olan sokakları, binaları ve trafik lambaları ölçü olarak değerlendirilemez. Kolera. Kentsel dokunun bel kemiği insanda ve doğada olduğu gibi altyapısıdırlar. Ve altyapı ağı damarlarıdır. Ölçü bu olacaktır. Altyapı sağlanmadan üst yapıya izin verilirse spekülasyon ortaya çıkar. Günümüzde her şey spekülatiftir. 7. Kentsel dokular günümüzde binalar ve bina kitleleriyle yapılan oyunlarla belirleniyor. Bu çok yanlıştır. Önce doğa ve çevre serbest alanları ve sonra yerleşim alanları çözümlenir. 8. Endüstri ülkelerinde mega kentler küçülüyor denildi. Yanlıştır. Şehir merkezleri dışarıya, kent dışına kaçmaya başlamıştır. Dağınık 100-200 kilometrelik bir yerleşim çapı oluşturuyor. Bu altyapının çok yönlü çözümünü getiriyor. Çok masraflıdır, finanse edilemez boyutlara ulaşıyor. Kentte yaşamak pahalıdır. İş yerleri kenti terk ederek ucuz üretim yapılacağı yer aramaktadır. İşsizlik artmakta. Bir de özellikle Avrupa ülkelerinde. Çözüm. Merkezsel dokuların ötesinde radikal bir çözümle aksiyal altyapı aksıdır. İnfrastrüktür aksıdır. Bu aks bölgeler ve ülkeler arası bir bağdır. Hızlı ulaşım, enerji, güneş enerjisi, pis su, temiz su, recycling, sağlık sorunları, iletişim kanalları gibi altyapıyı belirleyen tüm fonksiyonların entegre edilmesi ile belirlenir. Uygun görülen yerlerde yerleşim fonksiyonlarına yer verilir. Bir mega aks kenttir. Uzayçanın dinamik, direkt katılımcı bir mega aks kentidir. Bununla eski kültür yerleşim dokuları yeniden kurulur. 10. İstanbul için 400 kilometrelik bir uygulama aks kent projesini düşünüyorum. İstanbul'un tüm yükünü bu aksa çekerek İstanbul'un nüfusunu 15 milyondan 4 milyonun altına indirip eski dokusuyla dünya kültür kenti olabilmesini sağlayabiliriz.
Excuse me, sir. Could I interrupt you? You nearly finished your statement? Because we don't want to deny other people time to have observations. Yeah. No, finish.
Kapitalizm
But
yerini
finish quickly.
yeni bir sisteme bırakacaktır. Bu da kültürel yerleşimdir. Zengin fakir kavramları relatiftir, değişkendir. Devlet kalkacaktır, üst düzey platform ve gremiyumlar uluslararası boyutlarda devletin yerini alacaktır. Bu gremiyumlar daha çok bilim adamları ve teknokratlardan oluşmalı, politik sınıfı gerçeğin çok üstünde değer kazanmıştır. Bu azaltılmalıdır. Teşekkür ederim.
Thank you very much. May I reinforce what Mr. Tandon said earlier? Could we, because the focus of this forum is human solidarity, and could we direct our statements towards human solidarity? I recognize the gentleman in the second row here.
Thank you, sir. Dermot Knox from the Baha'i community of the United Kingdom. I would like to draw the forum's attention to the very important statement made this morning by Dr. Lambert. She said that public consultation was not only important, but that it should be a right. And I feel that this forum might like to make it as one of its suggestions to go forward that they feel that this is so, that it is a right, because it's so important. And I would like to draw the forum's attention to the fact that in Afghanistan, the Habitat rehabilitation program for towns incorporates such a thing, and the policy is that every 3 weeks there is a regular public consultation as part of the program. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. There's a young lady who raised a piece of paper with a question mark over here. I beg your pardon, I'm sorry. Excuse me.
I have a question to Ismail, Dr.
Yes.
Ismail. First, it would seem to me that the only reason to develop would be to bring human fulfillment, more human fulfillment. Excuse me. So far, it would seem that the only model we have of developed cities would be in the north, where I see great loneliness, emptiness, and I mean, wealth has brought us disconnectedness as well. If this is what we have as our model, probably pretty much our only model, why apply it, or why bring development to cities in the South? One of the speakers spoke of people in villages having extended families, where they have meaningful positions in the villages. He spoke of easy access to food. I agree. That's something that happens in rural areas. So why do multilateral development banks encourage, well, I'm very nervous, so heavily centralization into cities and agribusinesses which push small sustaining community family farms off their land? How does that happen to be such a major development bank policy?
May I answer? Mr. McNeil?
Yes? Of
Can
course,
I answer the
please. I
question?
beg your pardon. Yes.
Yeah, I think the answer, first of all, your understanding of the policies is wrong. In fact, the official policy of the World Bank is to support smallholder agriculture. It is not to support large-scale combines. We are working with a number of countries in trying to convince them on the benefits of land reform, market-assisted land reforms. The two countries where we're having the most dialogue right now, because the governments are willing to address these questions, are South Africa and Colombia. But we're discussing with another number of countries as well, where cases of land tenure in the rural areas is very bad. Secondly, we're not in any way encouraging, I think as Charles Correa said more than once, it's not a matter of encouraging people to go to the cities. They're already coming, and they're coming in a very big way. The question is whether the cities will be more humane cities, where in fact people will be entitled to expect that they can in fact have clean water, they have sanitation, that they can breathe clean air, to have an opportunity at building themselves up with a job. We are strongly supporting microfinance to assist people to do that. And you are right about the concerns of anomie in the cities of the north. You're absolutely right. And there what we need to remember is I think that there is a perception of a false trade-off, that in fact the only way that you can increase the options for people is to you give up the bonds between people, because that has been the model that has emerged in the north. And in fact, what we have to do, and what we're trying to do in a place like Istanbul, when we come together here both to celebrate our strength and also confront our shortcomings, is to learn from each other how, in fact, not to just copy the mistakes of the past or the successes of the past, but to invent a totally new model. And that's what everybody here is contributing to, and where I, as well as other colleagues from the World Bank, not only are contributing, but are learning a lot also. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Turden, you want to make an
There was a lady bringing up the perspective of participation that Dr. Lambert brought up before. And I wanted to connect that to what Mr. Töpfer said just earlier about the local Agenda 21, because that document shows how we could fulfill all the commitments in every convention, because it is about human ecology, it is about ecology connected to nature, it is about the decent living and so, and it is about democracy and participation from everybody. So local Agenda 21 is a really good instrument to use, because there you create human solidarity too.
Thank you. Young lady back there, there's the one beside the blonde lady. Yes, there, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Anna Tibaijuka. I am from the National Women's Council of Tanzania. I have a question on which I would like both Mr. Seradadin and Ms. Udin from Sweden to answer. The reason for addressing them particularly is because my country has a lot to do with them. Well, my observation is that I believe that in the 21st century, the cancellation of the debt to poor countries will be, in my opinion, the biggest indicator of solidarity among nations. Although I do agree that solidarity has to be discussed first and foremost within nations, but I believe we are here because we accept that solidarity must also be addressed among nations. Having said that, my question is as follows. How does a country like Tanzania, the second poorest in the world, improve the living conditions of its people in the city, which is the subject of this conference, but I also will say in the countryside, because you cannot separate the conditions of the city from those of the countryside in poor countries like Tanzania. Maybe I should point out to this audience that as we sit here, the rate of urbanization in Tanzania is growing now at 12%. This is because of the implementation of a structural adjustment program. So my question is this: in the name of solidarity, how do we move to solve the debt problem? Mr. Sejadin, I should say that I was impressed by your human-first interventions. In fact, I feel a bit awkward that I should pose this question. But I feel that from the women, coming from the women's organization, we are struggling for economic empowerment. We are struggling to fight the injustice both within our country, but I think at the international level, because it is very difficult for our governments to act as caring governments if they tell us that they are not able to provide funds for vaccination, which the pediatrician was talking about, because they have to pay the debt. So I think my question or my reflection is that how do we, in the name of solidarity, solve the problem of the debt? Thank you.
Mr. Çiragan.
Thank you. I'll be happy to answer that. First and foremost, it's important to note that it's not because of the debt payment that there are problems with some of this, because there is a net inflow to Tanzania. But I agree with you. The burden is still too great for a country as poor as Tanzania. The World Bank, in fact, has made a proposal for debt relief for the poorest countries in the world, of which Tanzania would be a prime candidate. That proposal has been put before the finance ministers of the world in the spring meetings, is being discussed in the G7, and I'm hopeful that the ministers of finance of the countries of the north and as well as the countries of the south together will agree to finalize the special facility to relieve the debt of the poorest of the poor. The proposal has been made by the bank management. The president of the bank has announced it, and it's now being discussed among the ministers of finance of the world who will have to agree to its funding.
Thank you. The gentleman in the middle here. Yes, and then a lady in the very back row. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Nicolas Drouin. I'm from Quebec in Canada. I'm involved with Youth for Habitat 2, an international network of youth concerned by habitat issues. Mr. Çiragan was speaking about the role of media in Ethiopia, who brought the image of famine leading to intervention in this country. I believe that human solidarity should not be built on pity or guilt-ridden campaigns. I would like to ask a question to the panel here. I would like to know if you think that human solidarity should instead be built on education and developing responsibility of individuals regarding the effect of their actions, of their individualism. Thank you.
Who would like to take that?
I would like to.
Yes, sir.
I agree with you that human solidarity should be built on education and all those positive virtues. But as any mother knows, guilt also works wonders. And to the extent that we can get the rich in America and Western Europe feeling guilty for having all those calorie-enriched foods while people starve in the third world, guilt is a weapon that I'm afraid we will not shrink from using. So I hope you forgive us for our ingratitude. Thank you very much.
A lady at the back.
Ben
You.
Türkçe konuşacağım. Ben Türkiye temsilcisi olarak katılıyorum. Katıldığım kurum İller Bankası İstanbul Bölgesi. Şimdi bu kurumumuzun işlevi nedir? Çok özet bir bilgi vermek istiyorum. Çünkü Habitat 2'de her başlık altındaki konu urbanization'a bağlandı ve bizler bu olayın tamamen içerisinde uygulayıcısıyız. Ne anlamda? 300 belediye başkanı şu anda Marmara bölgesinde bulunmakta. Ve bu bölgesel çaptaki belediyelerin tüm altyapı sorunlarıyla birlikte jeolojik etüt, harita ve imar planı işleri bizim kurumumuz tarafından yürütülmektedir. Ben şu anda jeoloji, harita ve imar planı seksiyonunun yürütücüsü olarak bulunuyorum. Ve Habitat 2 sırasındaki bu değerli konuklarla bir araya gelmiş olmaktan ve onların fikirlerini almış olmaktan gerçekten büyük bir kıvanç duydum. Ancak dileğim şudur ki, eminim şu anda ben bu konuda bir açıklayıcı bilgi vermemiş olsaydım, sanıyorum bizlere ulaşamayacaktınız. Benim amacım bu buluşmanın ileride daha sürekli olmasını sağlamak. Ondan ötürü de bizim yaptığımız çalışmaları ve bundan sonra üreteceğimiz çalışmalarda her birinizin katkısının olmasını gerçekten içtenlikle diliyorum. Ayrıca bizler bütün bu başlıklar altında getirilmiş olan ekolojik denge olsun, ayrımcılık politikasına karşı olunuş olsun, kültürün korunması olsun, bütün bu konularda ciddi çalışmalar üretmekteyiz ve bu konuları da aynı zamanda hayata geçirmeye çalışmaktayız. Ancak bu projelerimizi görmenizi ve aynı zamanda da devamında da bize katkı koymanızı diliyorum. Ondan ötürü de ben bir yerde soru sormuyorum, buluşmak ve beraber bu işleri yürütmek için temennide bulunuyorum. Teşekkür ederim.
Yes, thank you very much. The gentleman in the white shirt in the back there. Yes, thank you very much.
My name is John Page from the United Kingdom. I want to speak on behalf of science and solidarity, which has not received very much attention in the discussion so far. I've been associated with the Habitat meeting for a long time because I wrote a scientific paper for the Habitat conference some 20 years ago. This last week there was a very interesting meeting in which the academies of science of the world came together and presented an extremely interesting report on the role of science in the city. Yesterday that committee reported to Committee 2 and I was there, and you could see how few seats were filled in Committee 2, and the bracketing of paragraphs in the morning had left the delegates exhausted for science in the afternoon. Now, this is a very serious position because I think that there's just not the awareness of the power of science. Man lives within nature, and it's the scientists who help you understand nature, and not the politicians who help you understand nature. But it is the politicians who have to work and implement policies. Now, last night, and this is just to illustrate, I think, a human initiative, I went back to my hotel, a little bit disappointed at the Committee 2, and I sat down and I found myself next to the Minister for Construction in Zimbabwe, who happens to be the chairman of the important group of 77, and we talked quite a bit, and we gradually developed. I sent you to bed with the copy of the report of the academies. Now, the point about this is that there are two initiatives we need. We want the initiative from science to commit itself to urbanism and its cause, and we want the commitment from politicians to be aware and listen to the contribution that science can make. Because we live in one world, and it is science that describes that world. It is science that gives you the limitations of that world, and therefore, if you fail to respect our knowledge, you will move to further disaster. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, I would like to, I'm sorry that we won't have time to take all the questions there are from the floor. I'd like to call on the organizer of this forum, Peter Oberlander, to say a few last words for us. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's been an extraordinary day. In fact, the reason we have to close it is because the cables that support all the electronic devices are too hot. So you can imagine that this is a victory, although technology seems to make sure that there's a limit to our victory. Allow me to just say three things very quickly. First and foremost, what we have heard today is truly extraordinary, and it's the beginning of a new experiment in attempting to deal with issues which up until now have been too difficult somehow to frame. The reason we've done that is in order to prepare a report for the second committee, which will go to the second committee on Tuesday on your behalf. So we will have an opportunity of putting your thoughts, the thoughts of the panel, before the process of producing the final document of Habitat 2. It'll become part of the Istanbul papers, and we will appear on your behalf before the hearing. Secondly, we are committed to continuing. We are continuing the process by probably publishing what you have spoken of, publishing what the panel has given us. There will be a true output and not just an outcome. Finally, the continuity is assured because we will try, with your help, to convene a comparable panel in a year from now and thereby begin to continue to discuss human solidarity as a continuing issue, a vital component of improving human settlements. If I may, in closing, before I ask Dr. N'Dow to speak, to say thank you to all the many, many people who've made that day possible, who've assured the success that we've all enjoyed. I personally want to thank the three people who worked for me tirelessly on my behalf, Rose, Shirley, and Jam, who's been a wonderful fellow. Those three have helped us beyond compare. In addition, there are two people on the Turkish side who have made my life not only bearable, but a true human experience of solidarity. Shefik, Onat, and Aisha. And I thank both of them for their real contribution. I learned something about human solidarity this morning at 3, when we tried to organize this space and decided to change it after many other drawings had been made. Finally, my personal thanks to our wonderful moderator, Robin McNeil, who had done a spectacular job and began to And may I now ask Dr. N'Dow to bring this very extraordinary experiment in dealing with a very difficult and sometimes elusive issue brilliantly. And on behalf of myself, thank you to the panel who've done an extraordinary job in dealing from their own experience, from their own knowledge and wisdom with that issue. Dr. N'Dow.
Thank you very much, Peter. My charge is only to say well done to our panel. We thank you all very much. Dr. Ruth Cardoso, who has had to leave us temporarily, I believe. First Lady of Brazil, Mr. Charles Correa, Architect Planner, India. Thank you very much. Professor Dogramazi Ishan, President, Bilken University, and a spiritual guide to me as well. That's another qualification he has. Mr. Milad Fuller, President, Habitat for Humanity International. Thank you, Milad. Dr. Fakonda Hassan, Member of Parliament, Egypt. The Honorable Teddy Kollek, former Mayor of Jerusalem. Dr. Benjamin Ladner, President, American University. Dr. Phyllis Lambert, Canadian Center for Architecture. Thank you. Federico Mayo, Dr. Mayo has had to leave us, Director General of UNESCO. The Honorable Billy Miller, Deputy Prime Minister, Barbados. Dean James Morton, Dean St. John the Divine, New York City. Mr. Nat Nuno Amatefeo, Mayor of Accra, Ghana. Dr. Atul Schlesinger Jr., eminent historian. Dr. Ismail Siral Geldin, Vice President, World Bank. Dr. Rajesh Tandon, Participatory Research Center, India. Mrs. Gorel Tudin, Deputy Speaker, Parliament of Sweden. Of course, our brilliant moderator, Mr. Robert McNeil, formerly McNeil Laranus out. As I close, I would like, ladies and gentlemen, for you to bear with me, for me to present an individual who is in this room. Quiet, very pensive, but I hope equally satisfied. The man who gave Habitat to its concreteness. Akot Ramachandran, my predecessor in Habitat. this was your brainchild, Akot, and we thank you very much for everything. We cannot close without extending our thanks to the hotel management of the Kempinski Çiragan. Is the manager here, Mr. Tishman, Mr. Henry Sears, any of the management here? Please let's acknowledge the support that you've given us in providing. We look forward to your continuing interest and support as we embark on this post-Istanbul journey. We are fully convinced that the contribution that has been brought to this effort today is going to be a seminal one as we lay the foundations, hopefully, for better human settlements in the 21st century. Thank you all very much for coming, and we look forward to working with you. We adjourn the meeting.
There are refreshments outside.